Hello, my name is Mike Ward, and I'm here with Monday Morning TV. I have in my possession an intelligence briefing that contains details regarding an event with sweeping ramifications for American foreign policy, international energy security, and the financial markets. What's in this briefing suggests we may be on the verge of witnessing an historic redrawing of global power structures. What's in this briefing contains sensitive details on a single event that could force entire nations, entire parts of the world, to enter into new geopolitical and economic alliances. Now let me make this clear. This intelligence can just as easily start wars as end them. We're at too early a point to know where all this is going to lead. But what's certain is that the information contained in this briefing will soon unleash an unstoppable chain reaction of both wealth creation and eradication. Simply put, this is one of the most important events of our generation, which is why it's critical you pay very close attention to everything I'm about to say. Here's what we know so far. There's a secluded town in southern Australia, Coober, Pedy. Its population is only 1,695 people, and those who do not live inside the town reside in underground caves because the area is nearly uninhabitable. Temperatures could reach as high as 118 degrees here, and just getting water to the town requires it to be piped in from 24 kilometers away. But Coober Pedy is about to become an immense international power of such influence that this small town will soon rival any Middle Eastern country. This small town may soon single-handedly dictate much of the world's future, and this small town will soon become ground zero for a fast-approaching and highly volatile international showdown over energy. Because Coober Pedy is located next to the Arckaringa Basin, and it's here that an unknown energy company came across what could be a $20 trillion shale oil find. Scientists now estimate 233 billion barrels of unconventional oil are waiting to be extracted from this location. To put that in perspective, the oil near Coober Pedy under the Arckaringa Basin could be larger than all of what's in Iraq, all of the oil in Iran, all of the oil in Canada, as well as Venezuela. And this one location in southern Australia could contain nearly as much oil as what's in all of Saudi Arabia, or at least what Saudi Arabia is claiming to have. Now, for years, it's been believed by many in Washington, D.C., that Saudi Arabia has been lying about its oil reserves. In fact, WikiLeaks almost sparked an international incident when it released secret cables suggesting Saudi Arabia was overestimating its reserves by 40%. So this Australian find could pose a major threat to many areas of the world. But what does it mean for America? After all, the Arckaringa Basin discovery could be nearly 6 times larger than the current estimates for the Bakken find in North Dakota, 17 times larger than the Marcellus Shale find in Pennsylvania and the surrounding areas, and an astounding 80 times larger than the Eagle Ford Basin in Texas. Domestic shale oil and natural gas are leading an American energy renaissance. Jobs are being created, local cities and towns are thriving. But given what's come to light in southern Australia, what does our future now hold? How will this impact our financial markets and America's relationships with China, India, and Iran? The situation has caught the attention of some very powerful people in Washington, D.C., including the man I'm going to interview today. His name is Dr. Kent Moores, and he is an energy advisor to major oil companies, financial institutions, international law firms, and 20 world governments. The list reads like a who's who of energy. The United States, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Iraq, and Australia are just a few of the nations that turn to him. Every major government player in this Arckaringa Basin discovery turns to Dr. Kent Moores. Dr. Kent Moores is also on 2 U.S. State Department task forces for shale energy. That's exactly what they found in the Arckaringa Basin. Dr. Moores regularly appears on major news and financial programs, and I'm very pleased to say that he is my energy advisor here at Monday Morning. Dr. Moores had his courier deliver me this intelligence briefing he prepared regarding this Arckaringa Basin discovery. Dr. Moores believes what he's disclosed in this briefing may usher in a new generation of millionaires in Australia, in America, and around the world. But they won't be bankers or Wall Street insiders. They'll be average folks on Main Street, people who get the real story immediately. Now, as you may already know, my company, Money Morning, is comprised of investigative journalists, financial experts, political insiders, and Wall Street veterans. We place ourselves on the front lines. It was Money Morning that exposed the credit default swap crisis that would set the stage for the recession. It was Money Morning in 2008 that warned of a coming stock market crash and dangerous oil shock that would wreak havoc across the world. We were the first team out front sounding the alarm about the Greek and European economic crises. We exposed the downright criminal practices of the banks, and our recent investigations have uncovered proof of looming water and resource wars. But we don't just cover the stories. We go far beyond that. We show average Americans how they can protect themselves in times of chaos, and how they can capitalize on opportunities when they arise. In fact, the same day news of this Arckaringa Basin discovery broke, well before word had reached the vast majority of the world, Dr. Kent Moores recommended the very company that controlled this historic find to those that follow his guidance here at Money Morning. So today, Dr. Kent Moores is going to brief you on this Arckaringa Basin situation. You'll see what's happening on the ground there through his eyes. He'll disclose the two major players, the two companies his sources indicate have the inside track on extracting that $20 trillion or more of unconventional energy as this unprecedented discovery enters its most lucrative phase. Now, as I previously mentioned, Dr. Kent Moores is an official energy advisor to not only the Australian and US governments, but he also advises many of the oil companies who are taking a keen interest in what's happening at the Arckaringa Basin. So when he says he is confident average Americans can earn as much as 400% in the next year alone, when he says that's only the beginning, that the long-term profit potential is unlimited because history has only presented a handful of opportunities like this, opportunities for folks on Main Street to dramatically transform their financial futures, it immediately becomes crystal clear how imperative it is that you get the full story, which is exactly what you're about to receive. Dr. Kent Moores, we've got a very serious, very exciting situation that is brewing in Southern Australia. I've read this intelligence briefing you've sent me, so let's get right into it. Let's start with the big question. What do Americans need to know about this historic find at the Arckaringa Basin?
Well, Mike, we've known that there have been some significant potential unconventional oil deposits in both southern and western Australia for some time now.
Kent, let me interrupt you there. When you say we, who are you talking about?
Well, we're talking about the US government, the Australian government, big oil, international banks. This has not been a particular mystery. And this Australian find, even before the news broke, was being hailed as a very major issue among international oil companies. We knew the announcement was coming. It was just a matter of when.
So Kent, the same day news broke of this Arckaringa Basin discovery, you alerted Money Morning readers who follow you to the company behind it. And given your particular background, one can come to the conclusion that the timing here wasn't a coincidence. But let's take a step back. When did you first hear about the energy potential that was just waiting to be found there?
I first started hearing about this way back in 2008. At the time, I was involved in consulting on three rather large natural gas deposits in northwestern Australia, the largest being Chevron's Gorgon project. And at that time, we were hearing rumors and persistent stories and seeing some anecdotal data that something real significant might be out there. Now, Mike, we also knew which company was likely to be central focused on this project. This was Link Energy, and that was a no-brainer because, frankly, they had 100% of all the leases, 16 million acres, right in the center of the Arckaringa Basin. And that's where the shale oil is.
Kent, I think that gives us some perspective. It took 5 years to get to where we are at today. This isn't some overnight phenomenon. So how likely is it that we've got the real thing here?
Well, Mike, this is definitely not an overnight phenomenon. Link has already invested $130 million in the initial drilling of several exploratory wells. Now, that's just small potatoes for big oil companies, but Link happens to be a small oil company. And the Arckaringa Basin isn't going to be a small development. This is going to be huge. From the initial test flow stages, and they haven't been fully analyzed yet, we're looking at some real massive potential.
Kent, what do you mean when you say the Arckaringa Basin is at the test flows stage?
Initially, when you're developing a field, it's nice to know, first off, how much you think is down there, and secondly, in which direction it may be flowing. In other words, where are the sweet spots? What you do with the test flow is you simply take a small amount of volume over a short period of time, and then the geologists determine what the overall reservoir looks like. Well, what's occurred here in this basin with Link's initial test flows is that that was coming out so high at such a high volume, it was almost knocking the wellhead off. Few people, and I'm talking about veterans here, had ever seen any flow like that. That led them to conclude on their initial estimates that there may be as much as 233 billion barrels available in this basin.
233 billion barrels is an incredible find. That's more than we've got anywhere in America. It's more than all of Iraq, Iran, Canada, Venezuela. It could be more than what is truly in Saudi Arabia, all from one tiny spot in the middle of nowhere in southern Australia. Now, Kent, you're on 2 U.S. State Department task forces for shale energy. You're an energy advisor to the Australian government, among many others. You work with the big oil companies in Australia. You know every angle of the situation. What you've disclosed in this intelligence briefing is that those current estimates for the Arckaringa Basin, 233 billion barrels of unconventional oil, $20 trillion worth of energy, these numbers could be dramatically underestimated. So how is that possible?
When the U.S. Geological Survey looked at the Bakken Shale up in North Dakota, back in 2008, they originally concluded there was about 4 billion barrels of oil that could be extracted there. And today, we're looking at figures upwards to 45 billion. Another example is the Marcellus, 17.4 billion barrels of oil equivalent was the original USGS figure when they did their estimates. And now my estimates for that basin are going considerably more. My latest estimate 2-3 months ago was in excess of 49 billion. So what we have here in Australia might be 233 billion barrels, but it may also be 300 or 400 billion. This could be one of the largest discoveries we've seen in the last 40 or 50 years worldwide. It's a bona fide redrawing of the global energy map as we know it. This fundamentally changes the dynamics of energy, not simply in Australia, but in India, in South and Southeast Asia for the next decade. This is fundamentally going to change how we regard where these oil supplies are going to be coming from.
Kent, let me ask you a follow-up question. You just mentioned Asia, but I want to talk about China because you're also an energy advisor to the Chinese government. Why is this Australian situation so important to them?
Well, Mike, Asia for some time has been trying to get off of coal and move to another source of fuel. They've been talking about building large pipelines from Russia and Kazakhstan. They found some natural gas in Myanmar to move the gas to the populated areas in places like China on the coast. I know the difficulties they've had over the last decade or so in trying to move into new sources of fuel. The plans had been put forward, the projects had begun, and then the Arckaringa Basin hits. Now, all these plans that have been under development for over a decade, they're all being rewritten. These countries are starting almost with a fresh chalkboard. The sorts of projects I'm seeing now from these countries, I advise, are so different from the sorts of things we thought were the best possible only a few years ago. That's how decisive this discovery is.
Kent, everything you've been talking about, this is all very sensitive from a geopolitical standpoint. Recently, an advisor to the Energy Security Council revealed that, due to the Arab Spring, OPEC is attempting to drive up oil prices and increase U.S. energy insecurity. It's been speculated they are doing this to bribe the public so another Egypt or Tunisia doesn't occur. Now, you do a great deal of highly classified work for our government in this area. You meet directly with OPEC, you meet with the IEA and the EIA. So I know there are limitations to what you can and can't discuss. But from an American geopolitical standpoint, does this Arckaringa discovery weaken what OPEC may be attempting?
We would like, and by we, I mean Washington, D.C. We would like to wean India, South Asia, even China off of its over-reliance on Iranian oil. This is viewed as a very big objective. It's another reason why, back in 2008, with my private contracting work, I began to see the importance of this. But more recently, From time to time, the government assignments I've had in Australia have actually indicated a change in policy is taking place. And so as a result, not only do we have the great potential for additional oil windfall in Australia, it's actually moving into a whole new political dynamic that tends to favor the United States at the expense of countries like Iran.
This is a very big piece on the world's geopolitical chessboard. So if America isn't threatened by what's happening in Australia, I'm guessing we're moving the pieces around and planning to use it to our advantage. Okay, Kent, let's talk about where all of this is headed. This company, Link Energy, because they are a small player, they simply can't get to this $20 trillion haul without some help. They've publicly admitted this. You know the oil is there, they know the oil is there, so does the US government, the Australian government. Just about everybody on the inside knew. So Link Energy is now in the hunt for a partner. They're looking for between 150 to 300 million to get this oil out of the ground, and they've hired Barclays Bank to help them with the search. So let me cut to the chase here. Where is this money going to come from?
I'm in the network of those people and actors internationally who get the first indication of who's floating a bond, who's developing an investment project, who actually is securing capital. That's exactly the sort of thing at a certain point the sources inside the Beltway have to, well, let's say they're obliged to move over into the designated private sector sources so we can begin circulating this in commercial quarters. This is where the public and the private sectors really come together on major international projects.
Kent, to somebody on the outside, what you've just described sounds like you're going to find out who the major players will be, which companies will be positioned to capitalize on this situation, all from an intelligence leak?
Well, I can't really answer that question using that term. What I can tell you is that what we technically call this is designed dissemination. Designed dissemination is intentional. It's for a specific purpose. Now, I see this all the time. I'll have a meeting with an ambassador, and it's very clear that about half of our conversation needs to move over to, say, some liaison in the Department of Commerce, because you can only get a portion of a policy executed if you can get American companies to invest in it. This happens all the time. We need a government that hands the football off to the private sector. That's how we get things done. That's how investors make money.
So let's get back to my original question. Where do you think the 150 to 300 million that Link needs is going to come from?
Well, there's going to be 20 or 30 international banks prepared to give that amount of money, 150 to 300 million, almost immediately to satisfy Link's requirements for the next exploratory stage. But we have to be very careful here, Mike. That 150 to 300 million is really only the initial installment. This entire project is going to cost billions and billions of dollars. But we have to put this in perspective. Whether it ends up being a project that costs $1 billion or $5 billion or $20 billion, there's $20 trillion or more in the ground waiting to come up. And all of this initial investment, even in the billions, is pocket change. This is especially true, Mike, since Link is giving up a percentage of this project. It may be as much as half.
Kent, you've already issued a recommendation for Link. Like I mentioned before, you did it the same day the news broke of this find, which sounds like design dissemination at its finest. But speaking today, right now, is this company Link where the biggest opportunity is?
Well, Mike, my answer there is both yes and no. Yes, it's a great long-term play, but no, because it's already shot up recently 382%. Now, right now, the lucrative opportunities are in what I call OSPs. This stands for operators and service providers. The O, operators, these are the companies who are going to be investing initially the 150 to 300 million that Link needs for the next exploratory drilling, and then right beyond that, the billions necessary for the full basin development. Well, service providers set up the infrastructure, they have the pipelines, the processing facilities, they do the drilling, they do the well completions, they even do the initial geological structuring and seismic before anything gets put in a field. Now, here's where the money actually begins flowing, well before anything comes out of the ground. Now, this is technologically sensitive. It requires a considerable amount of expertise. Simply put, there aren't that many companies out there able to provide the vast amount of services necessary for this huge Australian find. Fortunately, all of these companies that would be eligible to be included in this very small category are very heavily traded on the New York Stock Exchange and are very easily accessible.
Who do you have pegged for the role of the operator for the Arckaringa Basin? Who's going to be kicking in that money?
Mike, the company that I'm hearing consistently is the most likely one to come in with the large investment that Link needs, and over the length of this development is likely to be the company that is going to benefit most from the oil coming out of the ground, is a huge company. It's a company that has experience farming into other people's major projects. It is a company with a considerable amount of assets behind it, government support, and is really well regionally structured. All the elements Link needs to pull this basin move off are contained in this one company.
Kent, you named this company in the comprehensive intelligence dossier you sent me. I've got it in my hands right here. It's called Design Dissemination, the $20 trillion Arckaringa Basin game changer. We're going to send it to people after we conclude our investigation today. But just so folks watching can understand what kind of opportunity they're looking at here, what are the potential returns with this operator company?
Well, Mike, I've actually got a dual play here. The first is to play this company as a straight stock because its return is going to be significant. My initial estimates and very conservative estimates indicate that we're looking at a 3-digit return, 135% or better within the first year. But the second approach is to set up a series, a chain of option plays on the same stock to consistently be taking out 60% or more in a return multiple numbers of times during the same year. They can cash out, come back in at another cheap price, cash out again. That's what is occurring in Australia. That is very different.
So let's talk about the other important piece to the situation, the service provider, the company who is going to be on that receiving side of much of this funding. It's going to be cashing in big. Who has the inroads here?
Mike, I have in mind a specific company here. It's currently working in Australia. It has set up its infrastructure there. It already has projects there, and it has a very close connection with the South Australia provincial government, the government that ultimately will be setting up the regulations and will also have a very heavy say in terms of who actually receives the contract. Once this company announces that it has the major service contracts, we may easily see here a stock that will be rising 100, 200, 400% in the next 18 months. Secondly, we've got several option plays here. Those repetitive winners will be coming in an accelerated chain over the next 2 years. This is going to be a win-win proposition on the service side.
The briefing you've prepared, Design Dissemination, the $20 trillion Arckaringa Basin game changer. Average folks can use this, and it can make them very wealthy. So Kent, talk about this report. What's in it, and why did you create it?
So the report is exactly like something I would write and present in my government work or my work in the private sector. I'll give the background on this discovery, what's happened so far, what I expect to happen, all the twists and turns with the geopolitical issues. But I've also added the investment opportunities. These are major companies with heavy volume of trading every single day in New York. These are highly liquid, highly valuable companies, and they're the ones that are going to be moving in to what may well be the single most important oil discovery of the last 50 years. But for those who are interested, for a minimum risk, to be able to also partake on the option side, there's going to be a very detailed strategy to do this as well. This is going to be a project that's going to be generating profit for years to come. So what I've decided to do is put everything in one report, make the report simple, digestible, and clear.
Kent, the energy opportunities you uncover over and over again always seem to beat the whispers to Wall Street. After this interview, we're releasing your intelligence briefing, Design Dissemination, the $20 trillion Arckaringa Basin game changer. It's going to be sent specifically to members of your Energy Inner Circle. Tell us about the Energy Inner Circle.
Well, Mike, I wanted to create an opportunity to be able to utilize the information that I regularly have access to. That's exactly what Energy Inner Circle is designed to do. Ever since we've had subscribers, I have regularly been bringing them where I go. I've been introducing them to the people that I talk to. I'm giving them insight that you simply can't have unless you're actually there. This occurs consistently. People make money because of the insight that we can provide. What Energy Inner Circle does is to level the playing field.
Kent, leveling the playing field is one way of putting it. I'll put it another way. You're making a difference in people's lives with your work. The Monday morning mailroom is filled with letters, inspiring letters. They come in every day from average folks from all across this country who follow you. Now, some are short. Folks letting us know how they made 110% gains in only 2 days. That's pretty exciting. Or 80% in 7 days. Another subscriber was very happy with his over $17,000 return you led him to. He even asked if you could walk on water, or more appropriately, oil. Another subscriber anointed you the king of the energy world. Well, one husband could not thank you enough for what your work has done for he and his wife. I have a seemingly endless supply of these kinds of letters. This tells me the people who follow you feel like they are a part of something very big.
We are seeing developing globally in an accelerated way a new energy balance and infrastructure. It is going to demand more sources of energy than we've ever experienced in the past, and it's also going to demand that we're able to integrate these. The Energy Inner Circle is designed so that we can get opportunities from the broad gamut of energy. And now what we're going to be able to do is to take this historic find in Australia and put it up as the next major profit-making center.
Dr. Kent Moores, thank you for taking the time today to share what you've uncovered with the American public.
Thanks, Mike.
Today, you've been briefed on a bona fide, once-in-a-lifetime energy story. This is happening right in front of you. People will be reaping immense fortunes from this. That's a certainty. Now you have a very important decision to make. Will you be one of them? So let me get right to the point. Dr. Kent Moores has prepared the time-sensitive intelligence briefing, Design Dissemination, the $20 trillion Arckaringa Basin game changer. I want to deliver this to your email inbox immediately. This briefing is structured in a very similar fashion to what Dr. Moores would present to someone at the highest levels of the government, or to the CEO of a major energy company, except there is one important difference. This report also divulges the two companies, the operator and service provider, that OSP combination Kent's sources suggest are holding all the cards. These companies are already dialed into the Australian government, the same Australian government Dr. Moores advises on energy. Each opportunity could bring about a 400% payout in the short term, but the long-term potential is limitless. You'll also be walked step by step through how to set up a unique options chain Dr. Kent Moores has created for each of these opportunities. Almost like clockwork, you can potentially receive an endless stream of 60% returns that could be delivered to your bank account every 2 months. Now, if you've never traded options, don't worry, because you'll also be sent a supplemental report, The Power of Options. This will give you an expedited options trading checklist that'll take you from start to finish. These are opportunities most only hear about, but never get to take advantage of. These are the kinds of opportunities that create wealth that lasts generations. And you can buy them right now. 2 simple stocks. This report, Design Dissemination, the $20 trillion Arckaringa Basin game changer, it's yours. All you have to do is accept a risk-free membership to Dr. Kent Moore's Energy Inner Circle. He uses the Energy Inner Circle to place you beside him at his closed-door and highly sensitive meetings with the 20 world governments he advises. You will get that design dissemination before it hits Main Street. Now, as I mentioned before, Dr. Kent Moore's history of leading Monday morning readings to immense energy windfalls is undeniable. As an Energy Inner Circle member, you can expect to receive an average of 4 monthly intelligence briefings that include specific recommendations. These recommendations contain simple-to-follow instructions. And when it's time to maximize your returns on any of these recommendations, Dr. Kent Moores will release separate sell alerts as well. The Energy Inner Circle model portfolio is tightly managed. Dr. Kent Moores will also prepare intense and riveting dossiers on global power shifts and energy trends that will soon be making their presence felt. You will also have 24/7 access to the Energy Inner Circle members-only website. It's encrypted, it's password protected, and it contains every trade alert and every intelligence briefing, as well as a detailed portfolio of all recommendations. Plus, You will also be granted instant access to the Energy Inner Circle Report Library. Here you will find a collection of urgent investment reports containing opportunities that, just like today's Arckaringa Basin target, are sure game changers. We've also created an Energy Inner Circle concierge phone line so you can have all your questions and needs taken care of quickly. Now, the Energy Inner Circle is a very serious opportunity. I want to make that clear. But because Dr. Kent Moore's built it for average Americans, average folks who want their chance of striking it big with energy, it won't cost you $10,000 a year in membership dues. It won't even cost you $5,000. Now, if you go to my website, Monday Morning, it's right there plain as day. Membership dues usually run $2,999 a year. But I want to show you how powerful the Energy Inner Circle can be. I want Dr. Kent Moore's to prove it to you. So what I've done is authorize a small collection of Energy Inner Circle memberships to be offered for only $7.95 a year. That's it. And you can potentially earn many times that membership fee on a long list of energy opportunities. Now, if at any time during the next 3 months you decide this isn't right for you, simply contact me or my team and you will receive a complete refund of your membership dues. You can do this right up to the final day of this 3-month window. There is no pressure. You are in complete control. You only pay if the Energy Inner Circle is right for you. It's time to stake your claim to this Arckaringa Basin discovery, a find that could be the most exciting energy play of the last 50 years. Simply click the button below this video to join the Energy Inner Circle.